What's up, guys? Again, I've already informed some of you, or I should say one of you. I tried to film Inferi's Revenant the other night, and I didn't really dig the album. I think for me, it just sounded like the guitars, not the leads were all excellent, but it sounded like the rhythm guitar especially was a little buried in the mix behind the drums and the vocals. And I found myself during the songs really having to strain to hear what the riffs were that were being played. And it just made it hard to enjoy the album. It's not that I mind the style. You guys have probably caught on to the fact that I really love death metal. I really love especially the really technical stuff. You know, I couldn't get into that album, and I don't want to upload negative reactions on this channel. I want this channel to be positive. I want it to be a channel where I get to promote artists that I think are good, that are either underrated or up and coming. Yeah, I'm sure the guys from Inferior are good musicians, and I really enjoyed some of the stuff that some of the members did with Enfold Darkness as well. I just, you know, for whatever reason, I couldn't get into Revenant. I know a lot of you out there like it. I'm sorry you're not going to be seeing a reaction to that on this channel. But here we've got Rivers of Nihil. And if I'm saying that wrong, somebody in the comment section please correct me. But this album is called Where Owls Know My Name. And I've been hearing some pretty good things about it. I'm expecting a little bit, you know, stuff that's in the same vein as like Beyond Creation, Archspire, Black Crown Initiate. You know, more hard-hitting technical death metal. I'm gonna get right into it here. I don't really know anything about this band, and that's intentional. I don't want to spoil too much of the music for myself. Yeah, I'm gonna get into this first track here. It's only 1:44, so it seems almost like it might be a prelude, but I'm gonna get into this first track. This is called Cancer/Moonspeak. Alright, so that first track didn't really reveal a lot about the album. There's not really a whole lot to say about that. I did hear some kind of rougher, clean vocals in there. I wonder if those are going to come back over the course of the album. Just sort of a tranquil, meditative, kind of calm little opener here. But then as the track ended, you could hear the distortion from the guitar starting to, you know, raise in volume, and you can tell it's about to get pretty heavy. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get to the second track. This is The Silent Life. right, before we get back into it, pretty interesting first, 3 minutes and 22 seconds. I love sort of the slower, chuggy riff that they use throughout the majority of that first half of the song. And then, of course, you've got the double bass drums going crazy in the background. I think the vocals are good. I think the riffs are just, real head-knocking kind of stuff, like nothing super fancy, but I think it gets the job done. And then they were able to transition from, like I mentioned, the slower, chuggy stuff to stuff that was a little bit more technical, and then go back again. And I thought that was really cool. I'm pretty happy with what I'm hearing so far. I hate it when I say stuff like that, because then I sound like I'm some fucking gatekeeper of good metal or something, and I'm not. I'm just a regular dude. I'm just a fan. I've never played in a band. I've played with other people before. That's not what I'm saying. I just mean I've never formally, been in a band and made music before. So really, I have an outsider's perspective when it comes to a lot of this stuff. I'm just going off of my own listening history and what I've heard in my, almost 30 years now. But yeah, so far I don't think there's much not to like about this. And I think it's interesting too, the way they kind of slowed everything down near the middle here. We've got what sound like almost ambient effects in the background, and almost like, I don't know if that was a horn or what that was, but it was kind of faded into the back. I'll see if I can find it for you guys. Hey, you hear that? Sounds almost like a jazz instrument. One of you guys in the comments maybe can clue me up on that, but yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and let the rest of this finish out. This is pretty cool. Sorry, that's definitely a saxophone. If it's not, I mean, I feel like I just got my dose of jazz from the Mammoth album that I reacted to. So I would think that I would be able to identify a saxophone if I heard one, having just come off doing that review or that reaction. And I think that's what that is. I did not expect to hear that instrument on this album, I'm going to be honest. lot going on in that song, man. It was subtle, beautiful, heavy, brutal, jazzy. There's also death metal in there. The saxophone made a couple of appearances. The first time it sounded more like a traditional sax. I don't want to know if you could even call it a solo. I guess it would be a solo. But then the second time it came in, it seemed as if the notes that were being played with the saxophone, the way it was being played, it gave off this real eerie, kind of discordant, chaotic, unregulated kind of vibe. And maybe I'll be able to back up the music so that you guys can hear that. But I thought that was really strange and really kind of interesting. That saxophone sounds like it's being strangled to death, man. There's a lot to like about this first track. It's so varied and so, I feel like it's got so much going for it and so much going on that, like, I don't think I'll really be able to appreciate that track until the second time I listen to it, or third or fourth or fifth time I listen to it. I'm wondering though, is saxophone going to be something that, as listeners of death metal, black metal, extreme metal, and prog also, is saxophone something that's going to become just commonplace, and we're just, people like traditional metalheads are going to have to just get used to that sound? Because, man, I can't name them all off the tip of my tongue, but it feels like there have been a lot of bands, man, especially in the last 5 years, that have been using saxophone all of a sudden and using it a lot. Like, I don't know if a band like Rivers of Nihil, I hope I'm saying that correctly, I don't know if they had existed 15 years ago or 20 years ago, if there would have been any saxophone in here. I feel like that instrument has become almost trendy in extreme metal. In black metal, I know Isan uses it. It's in prog, obviously, with the more jazzy prog metal bands. And now I'm hearing it in death metal. It seems to be all over the place. Yeah, as a listener, it may just be something that I'll have to, acclimate myself to hearing more often, because it seems like it's getting used a lot more than it used to. So I'm going to go ahead and listen to this third track. It's called A Home, and it's 5 minutes and 19 seconds. so far has left me speechless, man. There's the riffs in here, the rhythms are so complicated and fast and fucking, they sound awesome, they sound badass. The beginning of the song started out almost brought to mind like I'm talking about the first 3-4 seconds, like that initial riff that came in and the distortion they were using brought me back to that Woods of Ypres album that I reacted to. And then some of this does sound like it borrows a little bit from Death Doom, and it's got these kind of emptier, colder, kind of more skeletal passages in here where the distortion's real dialed back, and you just hear the drums kind of lightly playing this kind of soft tempo, and then it gets really intense again, and now, you know, you've got the acoustic guitar and the guy singing. So this thing is kind of all over the place, but I think the music flows very, very, very well from one idea to the next. And this is not, like I'm discovering very early on in this album, this is not meat and potatoes death metal. Like there's a lot of shit going on here, from jazz stuff, acoustic stuff. There's a lot of variety in the riffs, and I liked too how in the beginning of the song, when it got more intense, they seemed to be switching back and forth between these two different effects on the guitar. That was really interesting. That was really cool, because a lot of death metal albums can become very homogeneous as far as the guitar sounds, and not so with this album, man. I mean, I've only heard, this is only the third song, but I really love this thing. Like this, if this keeps up, this is definitely going to be one of my favorites on the album. So we're going to go ahead and let the rest of it play out. Again, man, a million things going on in that song. I want to back it up to a guitar sound that I want you guys to help me identify. Like, what effect is this? Because this sounds like prog shit right here, man. And I'm not talking about new school, modern progressive metal. I'm talking about the old school prog. You guys will hear what I'm... Or maybe not prog, maybe more like psychedelic rock. If you guys could help me out with what that is, what that's called, I'd be really thankful for that, because I thought that was one of the neatest parts of the whole track. It's such a cool sound. It almost makes the listener feel like the music is underwater, or like the listener's underwater and they're looking up through the surface of the water and watching kind of the ripples and the sunlight and the vague images that are on the other side of the water, and they're like viewing all of this from that perspective. It's very weird. but I really like that in the song, and this band has really kind of shocked me so far. I didn't think that this was going to be like this. I'm blown away by what I've heard so far. They just seem like they're blending a lot of different styles and influences here. You can tell these guys, they're, you know, pretty eclectic with their musical palette, you know, their taste. Seems like there's a lot of different things kind of thrown in here. So, and I like the guy's voice. You know, I like the guy's singing voice. So, yeah, that a Home, that song, that's going to end up being one of my favorites probably on the album. But we're going to move on. This next track is called Old Nothing. This is track 4. God damn, man. This is like, so far, I know the music broke down and it got, again, we have another soft passage here when some clean vocals are probably going to come in, but, you know, so far this has been the most unapologetic death metal song on the whole album. Out of the 4 that we've heard so far, this is definitely the closest to the bullseye. They just are constantly changing riffs, changing tempos. The guitar and the drums sound so in sync, man. It's really a joy and a pleasure to listen to. It just sounds like they're very tight as a band. A lot of death metal bands, like if you noticed on the Slug J CD that I reacted to, it sounded like the guitar was doing one thing and the drums were kind of going ape shit behind the guitar, and they weren't necessarily completely online in step every single time with a lot of these riffs. On this song at least, it sounds like the guitar and the drums, they're so precise in matching each other, and they're able to sort of change speeds so quickly and on a dime, and there's no sloppiness. It doesn't feel like anyone's getting lost. It just I know it takes a lot of practice with people to be able to do that. And I'm assuming that these guys are a band with 4 or more people. So I'm making these comments about, oh man, it sounds like they really honed their craft as a team, you know, or as a group. Later I'll find out that it's 2 people and that the drums have been programmed, but these definitely sound like real drums. And if I'm wrong about that, then I'll definitely eat my words. You guys can correct me, but they sound like real drums. They're blowing me away so far. So, yeah, I'm gonna see what's going on with this little passage right here, this softer passage, and then finish out the rest of the song. I don't know why, when I was listening to that song, right after I started playing it again, right after my first little batch of commentary there, it was almost like the emotional fragrance of the music, and with that solo playing, it just got really melancholic all of a sudden and got kind of depressive. So I don't really know where that came from, but that's sort of how the music was making me feel, and then the intensity came back, and I just gotta say too, the drums on this album are just a blitzkrieg, man. They are relentless. They're so fast and so pummeling, and they're so busy. Like, they're constantly moving from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, and so as a listener you can't really ever relax. That was an excellent song too, man. It was definitely a little bit more by the numbers. It still kind of delivered some different feeling. I felt anyway. You know, it started off pretty intense, and then it got kind of moody and depressive, and then it finished intense again. So it's definitely taking you on a journey as a listener. Yeah, I thought that was a good song. So we're gonna move on to track 5. This is called Subtle Change, including the Forest of Transition and Dissatisfaction Dance. This is a monster 8-minute and 34-second song. I believe this is the longest on the album. So we're gonna check this thing out, and yeah, I'll pause it in the middle like usual.
As you drift back to what you were.
I don't know what to say, dude. This is insane. It's like almost like if Porcupine Tree and Haken decided to create a fucking death metal track. It's almost like this band is on a mission to prove that they're how unconventional they are. Because every single song on here has been wildly different from the others. This is like the prog song right here. I'm blown away right now, man. I cannot believe the way this album sounds, man. This is not what I was expecting at all. Holy shit. Yeah, I was thinking, I was like, dude, this is so proggy. You know, are they gonna go full prog? And then of course they brought in the keyboard. I guess that was a keyboard. If I'm wrong, you guys will correct me on that too, I'm sure. They went there. They're not afraid to go there. So all you prog heads out there that watch this channel, however many of there you are, I know there's at least one of you. Listen to this damn song, because you're gonna like this. I love prog too, don't get me wrong. I love bands like Haken and Porcupine Tree. They're some of my favorite bands. But I just did not expect to find those sounds and those riffs, you know, on this album. It's just fucking amazing that it's on here. So we're gonna go ahead and finish the rest of this song out. Yeah, this is one of the most experimental, avant-garde things that I've reviewed on this channel that I've reacted to. I mean, I haven't reacted to very much stuff, so it's easy for me to say that, but at least with the Mammoth album, you were expecting some of the things that you heard on that album. This is supposed to be a death metal album, and it is a death metal album. That's the crazy thing. But this doesn't have, in my opinion, I'm looking at Google provides these related artists down below for you to kind of put the music into context, I guess, or they think that if you like this, then you might like this also. Like, this doesn't really have a lot to do with Archspire, Fallujah, Decrepit Birth, or Beyond Creation. Like, this is a completely different beast right here, man. God, there's so much going on in this music, and from that track by itself just showcased so much. So many of the different influences that have helped create this album and this band's sound. I mean, from the acoustic guitars, or of course the saxophone, and then you had the keyboards or synthesizers. I'm not really sure what that was, but that was definitely in there. And then also they have sections in here where it sounds like very death metal. I thought that this was going to be like tomato soup or chicken noodle, and it turned out to be gumbo, you know. And there's just so much shit in here. It's really blowing my mind, and I'm actually kind of surprised that this plays to the same audience as the people that enjoyed Slug J, because this is a lot different from Slug J. There's a lot else going on in this music. This is pretty experimental shit. Yeah, I'm impressed so far, but I'm also just like shell-shocked too. I can't believe that this exists, because this is definitely different from what I'm used to hearing in the death metal world. So I'm going to go ahead and move on from that mammoth track to the 6th track. This is called Terrestrial III, Wither. It's 3 minutes and 49 seconds. That was insane. Yeah, it feels like, I don't know what to say, man. I love avant-garde and experimental albums, so this is right up my alley, actually. But it's almost reaching a point of absurdity with these guys. Like, it seems like with every song on this album, they're introducing some new aesthetic, some new sound. Like, this song sounded like it was influenced by like electronic music and like heavy electronic music, and maybe like a hint of industrial too. Now, I'm not an expert on industrial music by any means, but it sounded like there was a fucking steel mallet being struck in the background during that beat at different places, and it just, I don't know what to say, man. There's 4 more tracks on this thing. How many other genres of music can they introduce on this album before it's over, man? Seems like they're really going for it, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, most experimental albums that you hear, most avant-garde albums that you hear, they seem to establish sort of a shtick early. Like, they're like, this is who we are, this is how we like to experiment with sound and composition and melody and harmony and all these different things, and texture. This is our aesthetic, and then it's consistent throughout the entire record, and you hear different variations upon that aesthetic. You know, some of the weirdest bands in the avant-garde world anyway will do that, and in the prog world as well will do that. This, on the other hand, feels like it's redefining itself with every track. All of these tracks, I feel like, fall into different genres. I've never heard anything like this. And I'm not saying this is the most experimental music that's ever been made or anything. I don't want to make any grand proclamations like I did perhaps on some of my other album reactions. It's crazy as a listener because you're trying to categorize their sound as a band in your mind. They just make it impossible. Like, there is no genre for this. I mean, you could call it death metal, but that's not really doing the album any justice, man. There's so much different stuff on here, and every track is different, fundamentally different. I can't believe, like, I'm almost suspicious that the people that commented on the Slug J album, that they've listened to this whole album. I mean, I'm not saying that, I know you guys have probably heard this thing, but I'm just surprised. Not that you guys like this, because I don't really know what your palette is, but I'm surprised that the Slug J album reaction attracted people that would recommend something like this, because this is like, throw everything that you could possibly think of into one album, and with a sort of a death metal veneer. Not a veneer, except people think that that's a negative word. I'm saying, you know, we're going to make a death metal album, but we're going to throw as many different influences from other genres of music as we can into this thing, and just mix it all up. It's almost like a gumbo of different styles. Instead of belaboring the same point 50 million times, I'm going to go ahead and move on. This next track is called Hollow, and God knows what it's going to sound like. Usually, you know, I have a feeling what a band's going to do by the time I get to the 7th track of an album, but I have no idea what they're going to do, so we're going to find out. This is called Hollow. It's 5 minutes and 13 seconds. Okay, this part that we're in the middle of right here, this sounds like modern prog again. But before that, the guy, first of all, the guy's voice, especially the way he opened the song, I was having kind of a flip out, like in my head, because I was like, man, that sounds a lot like Nurgle from Behemoth. And I think it's because of, you can really hear his actual voice, like coming through in the growl. It hasn't been completely obscured by sort of the grit and the phlegm in his delivery. It's still very human and natural, and it's almost like a hybrid between a true growl and like a yell or a scream. It's like somewhere in the middle. Yeah, it's a very interesting vocal, but yeah, it kind of reminded me of Nurgle. And then I don't know what you want out of a death metal song, but so far, man, the riffs on this thing are pretty amazing. Yeah, you know what this almost reminds me of? My uncle actually got me onto an album by a band called The Circle, and the album was Heritoire. That was the name of the album. And it had the atmosphere of a modern prog album, but the actual substance of the music was steeped in and influenced by death doom and black metal. So it was a really interesting kind of album. This reminds me a lot of that album, man. Not quite as like celestial and ethereal, but still, like, parts of this sound a lot like prog, man. I don't know. And I don't know what that sound is in the background, if that's an organ or a horn or what that is, but I really need to read up on this album and read into the different instruments that they're using, that are being used, because you know, they're constantly introducing new sounds and I'm having trouble keeping up with it. It seems like a deluge of different sounds and instruments, and somebody in the comment section maybe can clue me in on what that is. Hear that? That sounds like modern prog metal, man. This is one of the most insane listening experiences I've had in a long, long time, man. There's so much on this album. There's so many different styles and songs, and even this song, I thought at first that they were going to be going more of the traditional death metal route, and then the song kind of slowly morphed into this modern prog metal kind of track, and I don't understand why this album isn't getting more press, man. Maybe it is and I just haven't been paying attention, but anyway, I'm going to go ahead and let this song, Hollow, finish out. So cool, man. That song goes right up to the top, man, with my favorites on the album. So far, I have to say my two favorites are Hollow and A Home. Silent Life and Subtle Change would be just under that. And maybe Old Nothing under that. Terrestrial III, I still don't know what to do with that thing. And Cancer Moonspeak, same way, don't really know what to do with that thing either. So far, I love the album. I can't wait to listen to this thing again, actually. Because I feel like my brain is fucking melting out of my ears right now listening to this. I'm also curious about, maybe I'll read some into the meaning behind the album title, because I'm curious to know. That's a really odd title for an album, Where Owls Know My Name. This is really strange. I'm wondering what that means. The album cover is strange. It looks like Treebeard from Lord of the Rings, but you can tell it's some 20-something with a beard, metalhead guy. But he's like a plant person. It's really strange. I don't know. There's just a lot of strange things going on with this album in general. Just, yeah, I don't know what to say about it, man. I'm running out of adjectives to describe this thing. All right, guys, we're gonna finish out this album. I've been doing some reading about it, especially some of the different reviews. The one on Angry Metal Guy caught my attention particularly. The guy acknowledged that it was good, but I think it got like a 3 out of 5. And at the end of the review, he pretty much said that I guess, according to him, this band's earlier material was pretty bad. It sounded to him like a mixtape, or not a mixtape, that's the wrong word. It sounded to him like a demo, like a rough demo. And he was kind of saying like, wow, this band finally managed to pull something together that doesn't sound like a rough demo. I haven't listened to any of this band's earlier music. This is the first time I've been exposed to them. I don't really know whether that's true, but he also said that this band was going to experience its brief moment of prog death metal fame based on this album. So I think that's a little harsh. I mean, so far there's a definite prog influence on this album, but it doesn't feel like, this doesn't feel cheap or contrived to me. I'm enjoying this thing. I think that, you know, the use of the saxophone obviously is going to drive a lot of people away and cause a lot of death metal fans to make fun of this band. But I thought actually a track like Subtle Change, for example, I thought it was really well done, even though I couldn't believe that they were willing to kind of invoke so many prog stereotypes on one song. But yeah, I thought that so far I think this has been executed well. I don't really see why people would be upset about this album. It just shows the subjectivity to a certain extent of even people who review and react to music, like different people. What sounds interesting to one person, to another person may sound derivative and contrived. So I think that's more where he was coming from. So far, I love this album. I think it's really cool. I didn't expect this band to come through with some of the sounds and influences that they have on this record so far. So, and I still feel like I don't really know what to expect with each track, and that's a good thing. Whenever a band starts to get a little formulaic and you kind of get onto their sound early, and they don't deviate very much, it can make it a tough listen for an entire album, even if you like the aesthetic that's being put forward. With this band, on the other hand, there's a lot of variety in the music, and to me, variety is good. So, but we're going to move on to the 8th track, Death is Real. It's 6 minutes and 9 seconds, and if you notice, in this album, ever since the track Subtle Change, which was the longest on the whole album at 8 minutes and 34 seconds, every single song after that has been getting longer, with each new track's a little bit longer. They started with Terrestrial III, that was 3 minutes and 49 seconds. The next track, Hollow, was over 5 minutes. Death is Real's over 6 minutes. Where Owls Know My Name, the title track, track 9, is almost 7 minutes. And then track 10, Capricorn, Agoraphobia, is almost 8 minutes. So they're getting longer and longer here. I want to say in typical prog fashion, but I don't really know if I've noticed a pattern like that on various prog albums that I've looked at and listened to. So it's just something, it's just interesting. I wanted to point that out. Again, this is track 8, Death is Real, 6 minutes and 9 seconds. This track, to me, is obviously it's more straightforward. Some people are going to be hollering deathcore when they hear stuff like this. I mean, this, I guess, isn't too far away from something like Thy Art is Murder, right? It's good, don't get me wrong, but now that I've gotten used to hearing them go in these different directions when they come out with a track like this, it's a little bit underwhelming. I'm totally invested in this band and what their sound is and who they are, but yeah, this song is definitely closer to the more conventional sounds that you find in death metal and in deathcore particularly. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and let the rest of this play out. guys want to see a pretty fun video about the song Holy War by Thy Art Is Murder, go ahead and head on over to Vin, spelled V-I-N, and Sorry, spelled S-O-R-I. Go ahead and head on over to their channel, because I think they just reacted to that song. And maybe it's because I just watched that Thy Art Is Murder is fresh on my brain, and deathcore is fresh on my brain, but yeah, this sounds very, very close to that style to me. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it. Like, I'm not a enthusiast for that kind of music, that style. But I think it's, you know, it's better than a lot of other stuff I've heard from other subgenres, even subgenres that I like prog and grindcore and even tech death. Like, I can handle, you know, I can tolerate the deathcore stuff. So yeah, if one of the band members from this band comments in the comment section and goes, that's not deathcore, or like other people that are fans of deathcore comment and say that's not real deathcore or whatever, that has nothing to do with deathcore, then I'm sorry. You know, I'm just going based on what I've heard. So I'm not a huge aficionado of that subgenre. They've tried everything else. It seems like they, you know, this is just the song on the track listing where they kind of went into the deathcore realm a little bit. Yeah, it was an okay song. I'm not as impressed with that song as some of the other tracks on this track listing. Particularly Silent Life, A Home, Subtle Change, and Hollow, I thought were excellent songs. This song for me is more in the kind of meh category. Yeah, it's still no real glaring weaknesses in that song. So we're going to go ahead and move on to track 9, Where Owls Know My Name. This is the title track on the album. It's 6 minutes and 42 seconds. Again, I have to reference that Angry Metal Guy review of this album where the writer and reviewer kind of poked fun at the name of the album, and I guess according to him, Where Owls Know My Name is supposed to be a joke, because owls, you know, obviously the sound they make, it sounds a lot like who, right? So I guess he thinks that that's the pun that's being made with this album title. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting nonetheless. It seems a little bit out of left field, that name. But who knows, man? This may be a killer song, so I'm going to go ahead and get into it. This is track 9, the title track, Where Owls Know My Name.
Say
This is a beautiful song right here. And again, the saxophone, whenever it comes in, it actually, the reason I'm not mad about it is because it feels like it fits somehow in the music. It doesn't feel out of place. It doesn't feel like they're trying too hard. It doesn't feel like they're trying to be something that they're not. The saxophone actually works, I feel like, in these songs. They really only give it, well, in this song, I should say, they really only use it in like a more soloing capacity. It just feels like the saxophone sort of riffing over these different scales, and that's cool, but you know, even still, I feel like it works like within the body of the song. So also, I love the intro to this song. You get the clean vocals, a very soft passage, and then it kind of dropped into this real heavy sort of breakdown. And I have to say about the guitar riffs in this song, they feel like they're very percussive, like they have, they're very rhythmic. They were written, you can tell, with the drum pattern and drum beat in mind. And the drums and those guitars are just synced up perfectly once again. I really like that. And then once again, we've gotten to this, like here, this point in the song, we've gotten to this real kind of soft, meditative sort of section that makes you kind of want to just sway back and forth, right? So yeah, there's a lot that's being offered in this song. I'm really enjoying it so far. I'm going to go ahead and let the rest of it play out. Yeah, that was an excellent song. I mean, I thought that it was dynamic. I mean, you had all of these soft and heavy passages kind of alternating in there, and the drummer, kudos to the drummer, man. He seems to be going off. He seems like he's got a lot of talent. Just very interesting. Just keying in and listening to him sometimes, it's entertaining. It's very engaging sometimes just to listen to some of his fills and his rhythms, and the drums actually sound pretty good. They're not real artificial sounding and clicky. I mean, some people may still have minor complaints about the sound of the drums on this album. It's not as authentic, like genuine sounding maybe, as like the drums on, for example, that Candlemass album that I reacted to, where it literally, you can hear the hollowness of the drum, and you can hear it sounds like an actual instrument. It's not maybe on that level as far as the sound, but also the guy is playing super fast, and it still sounds punchy. It still sounds, you know, thick. There's an actual thud there when he hits it. So that's not always a guarantee when you get to death metal, right? And prog too, and some other genres. I had nothing to complain about with that song. I thought that song was another excellent song on this album. I don't know where it fits in with what I've already heard, but I definitely would enjoy hearing that one again. That was really nice. That was the title track, Where Owls Know My Name. Here we have the last song on the album. This is Capricorn, Agoraphobia. It's 7 minutes and 50 seconds. And this is obviously this is the closer. I'm expecting some prog shit to happen on this song because it's long, it's the closer. It would be a fitting end to this album if they went into more of a progressive metal direction. I guess we're gonna find out.
Fear drowns the mind. In my kingdom, in my refuge, within this empty room.
Yeah, this is one of the heaviest songs on the whole album from what I can remember. I love the atmosphere that they created in the beginning of the song. Some of the vocal effects were pretty cool too. I don't know how I feel about the vocals overall on this thing. I think they did a good job with the vocals. I thought they were good on this song. And then if you go to the beginning of towards the beginning of the track, when they had those, it sounded like he was talking over a speaker almost. I thought that was kind of cool. I know bands like to play around with different vocal effects, but that kind of gave me kind of a prog feel too. I don't know where I would place this as far as like referencing another band or another album or another song, but that definitely gave me sort of a prog-ish feel. They started out, man, they kind of built, and it was a little bit soft in the beginning, and then it kind of built and built, and then they dropped into this super heavy riff, man. It was really exciting. double bass is just merciless, man. It sounds so fresh and so good and so punchy, and I love that sound on this album, and it's all over this thing. So again, I love the drums, man, and the riffs aren't bad either. It's powerful music. Yeah, I love this so far. Let's see if our old buddy the sax, if he makes an appearance on this last track. After the midpoint of that song, it kind of gave me almost like a post-rock or post-metal vibe. I'll see if I can rewind that for you guys so you can hear what I'm talking about. But like one of our subscribers has said on another video, you know, post-rock kind of takes elements of rock and roll and breaks them down into their tiniest, most granule components, I guess. And sort of is very atmospheric and likes to really kind of take listeners on these epic journeys through like various soundscapes, and it can be very beautiful and like very lofty and very moving and inspiring, and like that's kind of the vibe that I got from this section. I'll play it for you. So here the instrumentation's almost completely stopped, but there's some light guitar playing, and they're giving sort of this they're trying to build an atmosphere here, and then it's going to accelerate very quickly into this very grandiose, lofty kind of explosion of feeling, right? Yeah, I did not expect to hear sections like that on this album either. So, Yeah, it just feels like they threw the entire kitchen sink and the pantry and the cupboard and the refrigerator and the spice rack, everything they threw into this album. They took a lot of risks, and for myself, I think most of them paid off. I don't think it's going to go over well with some people within the death metal community, because I feel like they're gonna dog it out and say it's too proggy, it's too jazzy, there's too many weird elements in here, too many borrowings from other styles, and why don't you guys just play more straightforward death metal? And that's sort of how this was billed to me anyway, as being like a death metal album. But I think it's a lot more than death metal. I think there's a lot of influences in here that you don't typically find in death metal. And if you guys know of any more albums like this, man, I'd love to hear those. I'd love to know who some of those bands are, because, I didn't expect this. This was way, way beyond what I thought this was going to be. I give it a good rating, right? I liked the album. I'd love to listen to some of these songs again. My favorite songs were The Silent Life, A Home, Subtle Change. Terrestrial was interesting. I like that one. The Hollow was interesting too. That was maybe one of my favorites. And then Where Owls Know My Name, and the last track, Capricorn / Agoraphobia. I thought those songs were all badass. And I would give this thing a high rating. Thank you to the people in my subscriber base who recommended this thing to me. I appreciate it. This is definitely going up. So this is something that I would want to have on my channel, and I would like to promote this album because I think this album's really cool. So yeah, this is Metal Album Reactions, guys. If you dug the video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe below, and give me some more recommendations for albums that you think are either underrated, or it might be the seminal album of a band that you think is underrated, or maybe it's a current album from this year that is getting some hype and some buzz, and you've heard it, you think it's good, you want to see me react to it on this channel. And maybe some of your personal pet albums that are a little obscure, that you just want to hear, reacted to. I want all that stuff, all the above. The only catch is, as I said with the Inferi album, Revenant, when I film these, I film them, I'm trying them out, right? I'm reacting to them. I haven't heard them before. I want this channel to be about promoting albums that I think are good. So you're not going to see negative reviews get uploaded on this channel. So if I start to film something and I don't like it, then I'll usually get to about halfway through, and then I'll pretty much abandon ship and just decide it's not something that I want to pursue further. I don't want you guys to hesitate recommending stuff because of that, but I just want to be honest with you and just let you know that it's not in my interest to do, an hour and a half long or an hour long album reaction to something that I don't like, and, have to edit all of that and take time rendering it and uploading it and then putting it on the channel. I think that this would be a cool channel if it was dedicated to promoting artists and their music, and not just a straight up review or reaction channel. So that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you guys very soon. I think I have another subscriber request that I'm gonna do. It is an album I know nothing about. I don't want to spoil it for you guys, but then after this subscriber request, this next one, if I don't get any more, then I'll go back to my list here from the research I've done of underrated albums. I'll pick an album at random, and we'll go from there. So I appreciate all of the subscribers out there. Thank you for your support. And if this is your first time visiting the channel, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button and to click the notification bell so that you know every time I drop something new. Make sure too that if you're making requests, okay, that you're a subscriber. Like, I don't want to indulge people that aren't even a part of the community who are making requests for entire album reactions. It's like, if you want me to take the time to react to an album that you think is good and spend all that time, then the least you can do is subscribe to the channel. I don't know how many subscribers I'm going to get on this channel. I didn't set out to get a lot of subscribers, but I want to cater to the people that are actually subscribed to the channel first and really listen to the stuff that they want me to listen to, and not people that are just making these fly-by-night suggestions. Let's meet each other halfway a little bit on that, is all I'm saying. That's it, and that's all, folks. I'll see you guys next time.